Yo, what is the deal? It is me again, Drew Brown, the professional coach, and you are listening to the Professional Chronicles. You know what I mean? Anyway, today is episode 3, and we're going to talk about the corporate Drew Brown. Oh my goodness. This guy right here, man, he used to be a wild boy, but he definitely came a long way. So this episode, man, I'm definitely dedicating this to the young professionals out there trying to find your way. The college kids, you come out of college, you know what I mean? I talk about some of that in here as well. But yeah, let's get started. So Corporate Drew started back at Langston University. Again, I talked about Syph in the previous episode. While I was in Syph, I was able to get 2 internships. One with JC Penney's, which was a summer internship, and then I also got an internship with Kraft, which was an internship that I kept through most of my senior year at Langston University. And both of these were just basic retail internships. Nothing too major, just doing the work from the ground up, understanding how the business runs, the operational processes, the ins and outs, so on and so forth, just basic merchandising, retail merchandising. So that's kind of what that was. Now, JC Penney's, I got to learn everything. I got to see the corporate side of things. I got to see the retail side of things and how they both work together as one unit. Now, upon graduation, my goal was to make sure that I had a job when I graduated. I wanted to make sure I had a job. I didn't want to walk across that stage without having a job. So and I had a kid too. So I was like, I can't be out here broke, without, I'm about to graduate into the world. I ain't got no job, I ain't got no money, I got kids, man. Nah, let me get my stuff together. So I pushed myself and boom, all through Syph, I got my first real job, which was at Enterprise. And I got hired there before I even graduated. And like, it was like I graduated on Saturday and I went to work that Monday. You know what I'm saying? Like Saturday, boom, Monday, I was at work, and that's how I wanted it because I saw that, just you get stuck out here and you don't find a job, early, man, you could be struggling. And I didn't want that. But, it was my first corporate job. So, I had a lot of troubles going into this job that I really couldn't see this stuff happening. I had a situation with my driver's license where, I'm working in Enterprise, you got to drive cars, but you don't got a driver's license, you can't drive cars. So that was a thing. Then, I just got tired of the job because, they called it a sales management trainee job, but it really was a sales job. And I just couldn't sell people stuff that they didn't want. I didn't think it was right, So I wasn't doing as good as I would like. And then, so because of that, I stopped coming in, I call in every once in a while. And then one time, I got fired on my day off because I called in like 2 days prior because I was trying to time it. So I was trying to, I went to the 100-year celebration at in Indiana for Kappa. And they had I was like, I'm gonna call in on this day, that I got these 2 days off, then going into the weekend, so I'll be good. Man, they called me on my day off, was like, boy, you fired. You didn't call in, we ain't playing with you no more. We didn't get you too many passes. So Enterprise was good to me, but I was not good to them. And this was me being the young corporate Drew, having to learn how to be a professional. So and also this is what helped me develop the brand, the professional, because I had to learn. So corporate Drew had to learn what being ready really meant. These early jobs, they tested me. I didn't know what to do, how to really, adapt to, react to all this stuff, or really how to respond. So sometimes I just wouldn't say nothing, and I just let it just all just go left instead of just speaking my mind and just being honest. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't know how to do that back then. So, but anyway, I got fired from Enterprise, and as time progressed, I'm working just cleaning buildings, trying to make money, and boom, Walmart calls me. I got a call from Walmart to come be an assistant manager. Great, amazing, phenomenal opportunity, and I took advantage of that. And it definitely pushed me into the responsibility that I didn't think that I was ready for, but I was prepared for. Managing over 200 people in one day, dealing with all the customer complaints, the trucks coming in, nobody to unload them, and it's got all this merchandise on it. It just be just crazy. But it definitely was a good experience. Taught me how, that I can be a leader, how to run a business, what it takes to run a business, understanding budgets, having to perform budget cuts, having to try to create a budget, doing people's hours, planning out, complex projects over the course of a couple weeks, a couple days, putting the right people in the place to be successful, training people, and more importantly, heck, firing people. Yeah, when you the boss, you got to fire people. A lot of people don't want to do that, but me, I don't mind. I don't have a problem firing people. It's one of my greatest qualities. But anyway, but after that, I was working at Walmart, and I was struggling still. Was with this kid situation, and in between that, I started going to grad school. I was going to grad school, so I was trying to get my MBA down in Southern Nazarene, but because I was working at Walmart, the hours conflicted with the school hours or the class time, so I had to drop out of that program. And I was almost finished with that program. I only had like about a semester left, but I found my way to Oklahoma State University in Stillwater. I got into their Masters of International Agriculture, and they called it the MEOP program, and it was fairly new when I got in it, and it was a really good experience. I got to study classes that I was interested in. So my focus was business and economics, dealing with agriculture, business, and agriculture economics. And I got to learn a lot just about production. And because I already had a retail background, this stuff definitely spoke to me and resonated with me in terms of how agriculture related businesses run in the agriculture industry. So that was a really good experience. Now, while I was working, while I was going to grad school down at OSU, which is also where I met my wife at, I worked at Hollister for a little bit. And this was before I met my wife, but I worked at Hollister for a little bit, and I was also working with a good friend of mine in his clothing line brand that he created, Dreams Free. And that was my friend Mark Duncan and his brother Devin Cummings. We call him DC though. He probably get mad if I say his whole name like that. But I was working with them on their brand, just kind of helping them be like that business consultant, that business mind, and where they kind of performed as the creatives, creating the designs and stuff like that, and I help them with marketing and things like that. And I was working at Hollister, and while I was working at Hollister, I got a really good experience that I didn't expect. I got to really just run the stores. I got to run the store kind of how I wanted. Our store manager and a district manager, and I think like two more assistant managers quit within like a couple weeks of me starting to work there. So we didn't have a lot of people looking after us. We would kind of own our own and do it how we wanted to do it. And as a result, I had the store set up to the point where, the associates, the kids that worked there, I had them to the point where they were like my little mini assistant managers, and they could run the store by themselves without me even having to be there. Some nights I would run two stores at one time for the whole day. I managed two stores, but it was that easy for me because, Syfe and then being at Walmart and all that definitely prepared me for that type of situation. One of the greatest achievements we had up there, we were still, like I said, we were still kind of, short staff as far as managers compared to the previous year, but we beat that previous year in sales for the month of October that year by like 160 some percent, something ridiculous. But it's because we had a lot of stuff, a lot of merchandise in the back that was just sitting, and we managed to get it out on the floor into the hands of the customers without having to mark it down crazy. So, but again, that was just, my ability to see issues, see problems, and come up with solutions that create profits. And that's what I learned being at Walmart. So yeah, that's some of the early corporate Drew. Now, as I got deeper into my corporate life, let's see, I bounced around a little bit, I had a really good job opportunity once I finished grad school. But I couldn't take it because I got a DUI that year, and part of the job required me to drive, so I couldn't take that. And so from there, I just really struggled to find my way corporate wise. I had worked, some temp jobs. I worked at the Department of Agriculture because I had the master's in agriculture, so I tried to find my way in that sector. So I took a temp job just to get my foot in the door. But when I got there, I realized it's a who you know game. To all you college kids, people looking for jobs, if you're not meeting new people, if you don't know new people that are in positions to either make a decision or know people that make the decisions for hiring people, man, you just another number. You know what I mean? And that's what I learned, and this was back in 2015. So, from that, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So, I bounced around a little bit more, and I found myself working. I used to pray to God. I was like, God, please let me just work with black people. I just want to work with black people so bad. And he gave it to me. Boom, gave it to me. And when he gave it to me, man, it was like one of the worst working experiences I ever had. just a high level of just we was just all unprofessional, and it really brought out a bad side of me. I didn't perform well working with my people. I just didn't, and I don't blame them. That's not what this about. We're not blaming them. It was me. It was totally 100% me. I just didn't know how to respond to them. And if I responded differently, those situations would have went a lot different. But because of my responses to the people I was working with, for the course of like 3 years, I struggled bad. And it was all me. And, I wasn't willing to accept it. I felt like, I went to college, I got my master's, I did everything I needed to do. But, I was just like, man, I'm tripping. So I know this was a little long, but this is a very important one because the corporate Drew had to go through a lot of stuff. And, people don't understand who I am and why I am the way I am today. But this is why, I went through this point in my life where I was just making problems for myself. And what that did was it brought me back down to the bottom. That Drake started from the bottom. That's literally what this corporate Drew story is about. I literally had to start from the bottom. And what I mean is after I quit my last job, I quit, I walked out. I should have had a better plan. But, my wife was fresh married, new baby, we have my son staying with us full time now. So now we have 2 kids. And now I got a family to provide for. And before that, I wasn't thinking about that. The professional Drew I wasn't thinking that deep into it. So, when I quit that job, I had to start over from the bottom. And the first job I had was I had a paper route. And I don't even know people who, I don't even know if they still throw papers like that. But I had a paper route. And this is back in 2017. I had a paper route. And then I also sub. So I would throw papers at night, sub in the day. Let me tell you something. Throwing papers was hell. It was hell. But I had to go through it. And I talk about that in my book, Drew Brown's Guideline to Get Off the Sideline. I talk about these overnight jobs. So I'm not going to go too deep in detail. But I have to do this to bring this all back around for you get the bigger picture of who the corporate Drew is today. Because the corporate Drew of today is not the corporate Drew of yesterday. That's for sure. I had to grow a lot. And I'm giving you this story so you can grow too. Because if you want to be successful in your corporate life, you're going to have to grow. You're going to have to change. You're going to have to grow. So what I had to do was I had to change. I had to humble myself. I had to get back to reality. I had to realize that my degrees didn't mean nothing. I had to get back to the reality that, it don't matter what somebody else is doing. It's about how I'm responding. That's what it's about. It's about how I respond. I had to get back to that. And that's what these jobs do. That's what having that paper route did. And the funny thing about the paper route, I got fired on my day off. Got fired on my day off. Another job, I got fired on my day off. I had 3 jobs in my life where I got fired on my day off. But nonetheless, I had to go through this. I went through another overnight job working at Dunkin' Donuts. Hated it. But, I learned to get back up. I picked back up my work ethic while I was at that job. I worked super hard to the point where I have nothing but 2 or 3 hours of downtime and I just go to sleep. But I was half-assing. I was going to work. I was showing up late. And I was leaving early. Now, when I say showing, when I say showing up late, I'm talking like 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? So I had to learn, man, like, you need to get to work on time and you need to take your job a little bit more serious so you can come out of this undisciplined behavior. But at the time I just couldn't realize it until I had to take another job that was overnight at Cracker Barrel. Now at Cracker Barrel, I started out as a dishwasher, because the overnight janitor job was still occupied by the person who was about to retire from that position. So I had to wait for him to retire before I could even get the job to clean the bathrooms and stuff overnight. So I was washing dishes, and man, it was another one of them humbling experiences, man. When that water and that drink from them people's drink, got into my glove, and my whole glove was filled with somebody else's drinking soda. I don't know if I said that right, but man, let me tell you, it was cold. Oh my goodness. I wanted to scream. I wanted to, but I couldn't, and what I understood was it's my fault. And if I want out, I gotta do something. And it wasn't until, I talk about this in Drew Brown's Guideline, Get Off the Sideline, but I had like a Holy Ghost moment, where it was just like the lights came on. And I looked at myself in the mirror one night, and I was like, I'm not even looking like myself. I'm tripping. Let me get in the gear. So from there, I started. I picked back up another little part time contract job. I was working as a resume writer for Top Resume, which is Talent Inc. And what I would do is I go to work at Cracker Barrel. I clean the bathroom from about 10 to probably 1:30, 2 a.m. And then from about 2 a.m. to like 5, I would write resumes, and I was working on my first book, Slave Minds. I was writing that book and I was designing that book while I was working at Cracker Barrel. And that's when I came up with the idea for the book, Drew Brown's Guideline, to get off the sideline while I was working one night and I was listening to J. Cole's Sideline Story. So a lot of good things came from that job at Cracker Barrel. And since that happened, I haven't looked back. Every experience I've had as, a corporate Drew has changed. Even in the times where I've been fired. Like I've been fired from jobs where, it was just like, it is what it is. They fired me. I understood why they fired me. They told me why they fired me. And I walked away with 0% resentment, a 0% resentment. I didn't resent anyone after they fired me because I knew, why would I resent you for it if I'm not going to do nothing about it? And that's what I took from the streets. But anyway, so that's kind of corporate Drew in a nutshell. And I know this was a little long, but I had to lay all that out so you can understand that, I've went through a lot as a professional. So when you see me talking as the professional coach, you got to understand where this is coming from. This isn't coming from something that I just made up, something I read in a magazine or a book. This is coming from real life experiences that I went through, that I see a lot of people go through these experiences, but they get stuck. You see, that's what I see a lot of people get stuck in these situations. A lot of people get stuck in the crummy bummy job, the overnight job, the jobs you don't like, with the the asshole boss or whatever, the nosy coworkers and stuff. A lot of us get stuck in those jobs, and what corporate Drew had to learn to do was what we're gonna talk about on the next episode, which is be creative. So if you want the solution to overcoming your job, check out that next episode, and I'm gonna tell you how you do that, because this is what I had to do to overcome my jobs, and just not even overcome the job, but just give myself something to apply my mind to. It don't even matter. You know what I mean? So with that said, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed this. Like, comment down below. Tell me about your corporate life, if you can relate, if you've been through any of these type of experiences. Share it with your people. And that's it. I'll talk to y'all next time on the next episode. We're going to talk about Creative Drew. Peace.